How's it going, everybody? It's Yong here with a Final Fantasy XV news update. The following information comes from website IGN, who recently chatted with Final Fantasy XV director Hajime Tabata to talk about some of his recent comments regarding the game's structure and progression. For those who missed it, Hajime Tabata essentially commented recently that the first half of the game will be very open world, and that the second half would be linear as the narrative starts to pick up. For all the information on that, be sure to check out my previous Final Fantasy XV video linked in the description below. So, when IGN asked Tabata during the recent PAX event to further elaborate what he meant by that, he actually took the time to rectify some of that information, stating the following: "Rather than it being the latter half, it's actually very close to the end of the game. I didn't want to end the game in an open world type of environment. At the very end, when the main character and the enemy are going against one another, there is a build-up in the story. I wanted to ensure that last part was a little bit different from the open world environment and more of a packed, condensed type of game experience. So for those who are worried that the second half was too big of a chunk to make linear, it looks like what Tabata really meant is that it's closer to the end of the game. As I've stated in my previous video, I actually think this is a great idea. When the structure of a game is kept too open world towards the end of a main campaign, I find that the story and narrative tend to get lost more often than not. So keeping things nice and tight as the narrative ramps up and reaches its climax will, I think, greatly benefit Final Fantasy XV in the long run, especially when the story is such a key element in this game." Further down in the article, Hajime Tabata actually went into more specifics in regards to where exactly in the game we can expect things to become more linear. And for those worried about spoilers, don't worry, he kept the details vague enough. He had the following to say: "Once the train sequence starts, the whole structure of the game changes drastically, where it's really focused on the story development and developing in a fast-paced kind of fashion thereafter, so you won't be able to physically go back and forth between those two areas. That said, you will be able to go back to that open-world environment through the menu, so you will still be able to experience the adventure that awaits you over there, which amounts to over 200 hours of gameplay, so that is still available to the player. After the whole train sequence, it kind of episodically goes through the story and takes it up to the end. So basically, when you play the game, look out for some kind of train sequence, which is when the game will shift from open world to a more linear structure. So maybe before you board that train, you might want to finish some side quests beforehand, because according to Tabata, this train sequence marks a sort of dramatic transition for the game in which players move to another area. With that said, Tabata also mentioned that players will be able to go back to the open world, but it won't be that seamless transition that we've seen in most footage, and will instead involve using the menus. So the option is still there, but just keep in mind that as soon as you board that train, things will become more episodic, more linear, and just more focused for narrative's sake, which again sounds great from where I'm personally sitting. And no folks, linear doesn't mean that levels are going to be reduced to Final Fantasy XIII style hallways. Tabata has already hinted in the past that while there will be a very clear main objective to focus on in this linear portion of the game, there will also be side things to do, so I would still expect some form of expansiveness even when things become more linear. But anyway, there you have it folks, further elaboration by Hajime Tabata on the game's open world structure and its transition to a more linear structure. Thank you for tuning in. Let us know in the comments below your thoughts on the matter. Do you like that the game becomes more linear towards the end, or would you have preferred that the game stay open world throughout its entirety? Let us know in the comments below, and to be further updated on Final Fantasy news, stay tuned right here on Yong Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Yong out!